time to feel the rage. Join us on Film Rage, where we talk movies, current releases, coming attractions, streaming, and classic films as well. Directors and actors, beware as you cannot hide from the rage. My name is Bryce, and I'm part of the Film Rage crew, which also includes Jim.
Hey.
And Murray.
Yo.
Why is it you always talk all the time? I can't understand why your voice is so...
This is the Merman, the voice of reason. These two can't agree on anything most of the time. Some movies are mondo, some are just suck. Every week something is going to make us rage. Join us every Wednesday and
feel the rage.
Please be advised, Mental Health Mondays deals with some heavy topics and subjects, such as mental health, suicide, sexual assault, and more. Please listen at your own discretion and please seek professional help if you are struggling. Thank you and enjoy the episode. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. I'm sorry if I seem a bit deflated or out of it in this one. I'm consistently yawning. I had absolutely horrible sleep last night, which has sort of prompted me to make this episode because I've dealt with night terrors and nightmares on and off since I was maybe about 10. And sometimes they're non-stop and it's a consistent thing. Sometimes it's one-off and I don't really ever dream or remember a dream or nightmare for months, sometimes years. But last night was a new one. I usually have a very similar or same premise to my nightmares and night terrors, which is usually I'm at a house. I never know where the house is. It's supposedly mine in the dream. Regardless, I'm there. I leave the house to take the bins to the front of the curb. But then when I do that, I stop. I turn around and there is always a man, and it's not always the same man, but there's a man that's staring at me, just watching. And then I stare back. And then, you get that creepy feeling, but you think all is fine. And then out of nowhere, this man will just start chasing me. It's sort of like if you've seen the movie Get Out, when he's running directly at the camera. It's sort of that feeling. But obviously instead of the camera, it's me. And it feels so fucking real. And sometimes he gets me and he pushes me to the ground and mounts me and starts choking me. I've woken up from the feeling of not being able to breathe many times. And I don't know why. I don't know why this particular dream. I've dealt with many scenarios and stuff that are similar, I suppose. So, but never that specific scenario. I've dealt with choking in my past. I've dealt with being chased, but never the two together and nothing like the way that it's portrayed in my dream. So I always found it odd that was the one reoccurring night terror that I would have. Sometimes it would be more violent than others, and sometimes I'd wake up before anything could really happen. But it was always the same sort of premise, which was super strange. But then that brings us to last night. I'm casually laying in bed. I'm half asleep. I'm getting ready to fall asleep. I pass out in true Ebony fashion with, my phone near me or on my face. Only to be woken up by the feeling of someone grabbing my ankles and pulling me to the end of the bed. Now, if I was awake and this was a sexual scenario, that's a whole different, that's a whole different question altogether. But this feeling, I didn't see the person. I didn't see features. I just felt cold hands grasp my ankles and pull me, and I mean really yank me to the end of the bed. And then I woke up. And that was it. And I woke up feeling so fucking uneasy. So uncomfortable. Usually when I have night terrors, something happens during the day or something happens recent to trigger it. And I'm racking my brain to understand why I had this particular vision in my head. I mean, I had just watched a horror movie that day, but I've seen some seriously disturbing shit in my day and been absolutely fine that night, so I don't think it was anything to do with that. I mean, my sister was in and out of hospital on the weekend, but I can't put two and two together, so I don't think it's that either. I honestly have no idea. And this is what, annoys me with these, when this happens in these scenarios, is I can sometimes pinpoint to what might have triggered it, and then other times I'm sitting there like, what the fuck just happened? Like, why? I've had memories come up as my dreams, and it's like deja vu and replaying certain scenarios. And usually they make sense because it'll be like I've spoken to someone from my past, or I've seen or heard something, and it would make sense that that's a trigger. But nothing happened yesterday out of the ordinary. Nothing happened that should have triggered that. And I think that makes me even more unsettled, is not knowing why. Like I said, I've dealt with similar and different and all sorts of imagery and visions and night terrors and nightmares and whatever the hell you want to call it my whole life, or most of, at least from 10 from what I can remember. I've dreamt people killing me. I've dreamt certain abuse. I've dreamt being choked. I've dreamt having my hair feel like it's been completely yanked out of my head. Like, I have had some serious dark and vivid imagery in my sleep. But this was just so out of the ordinary. Like, it kind of terrifies me to know what would have happened if I hadn't woken up. Like, where would the imagery have gone? Where would that vision have led to? So thank God I did wake up. But then I spent a good hour shuffling around my bed, making sure my ankles weren't being touched, and it was the most uncomfortable feeling. Finally got to somewhat of a sleep, in and out for a few hours before I had to actually wake up for work today. But even now, just sitting here, like, my ankles feel weird. Like, I feel like I should be looking, if I look down at them, that there will be like bruising or a hand mark around them, because it just felt so real and it was so fucking like aggressive. And the problem is that when this happens, like, I'm going to be so weary about sleeping tonight. Because that's what happens when I have these dreams, is the next day or two, like, I'll be really uncomfortable with sleeping. It's just the human mind is absolutely incredible for good and bad reasons. I don't know why I get these visions or imagery, night terrors, whatever you want to call it. I don't know why I replay certain things in my head over and over and over and over for years. You would think something that's so uncomfortable you'd block out, or it would fuck off, or you don't want to remember it. And yet, here I am. Please ignore my cat in the background. She's in heat. You'll probably hear her throughout. But it's just... it is such an unsettling feeling, and not being able to do anything about it. And then I spent most of the night worried that every time I fell asleep, I was going to fall back into the same dream, and I didn't want to know how that ended. I don't want to know why I was being pulled and dragged to the end of the bed. And yet I was. And the feeling didn't seem familiar, like it was someone I knew or been with or anything. The hands didn't feel familiar. It felt so foreign and so uncomfortable. Like, even just talking about it now, usually me talking about it can help in some way, but it's actually just putting me off even further. But that was always the point in this podcast, is for me to be open with you guys. Because unfortunately, I know some people relate to this sort of stuff, and I don't want to hold anything back. It's the point of this whole thing, is to be open and raw and as unedited as I can be into my journey and my mental health journey and what I'm dealing with and how I deal with things. But my God, it was just... strange. And it's just like, I think what annoys me even more though is, I mean, there's that obviously, which is the most uncomfortable and frustrating thing. But I have a tendency to vent my shit online, as a lot of people do nowadays. I mean, we rely on the internet way too much. But I will post shit on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook or whatever it may be. It's just me venting. I'm not expecting anyone to see it. I don't give a shit if anyone sees it or likes it or retweets or reshares or whatever the case is. I just do it as a vent. And the response I got to simply just posting, looks like my night terrors are back. At least I've now got material for the Nuggiez podcast, got to find a silver lining or something along those lines. Just me trying to make light of a fucking horrible situation. And just one of the responses just made me feel really, really uncomfortable. And now it's just like, if you can't take something like night terrors and nightmares seriously, then I kind of don't want to associate myself with you. And it just made me feel so uncomfortable that this particular person reacted this way to it. And it sort of just makes me feel gross. Just feels a bit icky. And, you know, I don't expect everyone to understand or relate. But I would have thought that at least know it's a serious situation. And this just didn't come across like they understood that at all. I'm not going to say who or what was said or what happened. I'm just purely, as I stated before, I'm just venting. But now I've got to get through a whole day of work with this horrible, awkward feeling. Only to go to bed tonight and probably go through it all over again. When this happens, it makes me watch my back. I've had anxiety and panic attacks in the shower purely because I can't stand to stand there and have my eyes shut while I wash my hair, because I freak the fuck out and think someone's going to be there when I open my eyes. Something as simple as pulling a hoodie over my head and my head popping up can terrify me because I'm so afraid of someone just going to be there. The smallest insignificant thing in my life can cause the biggest ripple effect. And that destroys me every time. I don't want to have to live in fear, and I feel like I've done that most of my life. When something as simple and as what should be calming and relaxing as sleep terrifies me. I've spoken to multiple people about this, professionals, friends, family, and I just don't really ever seem to get a result or anything resolved. And I may not ever get that, and I understand that. But I feel like I'm entitled to at least a decent, somewhat decent sleep. And if this is the start of night terrors coming back on a regular basis, I'm not looking forward to it. So here's hoping that it was a one-off. Here's hoping I don't have to deal with it again. At least not for a while. At least not back to back, I hope. But I know this was a short episode, but I just felt like I needed to get that off my chest, and I needed to dive a little bit into the night terrors and dreams and nightmares and visions and imagery and whatever you want to call it I have. This is definitely a topic that will be dived into more later down the track. This is definitely something that will be ongoing. Just last night really shook me and I just had to talk about it. So you lot are the lucky ones that get to hear about it. I have to go get ready for work, but I hope everyone has a wonderful, fantastic day. I hope you don't have to deal with this yourself, but if you are, always know that I'm always here to listen. My DMs are always open, even if I've never spoken to you before. Please reach out on the Instagram or Twitter pages and message me because the DMs are always open. Have a fantastic day and you'll hear from me in a week. Bye, guys.
Thank you for listening to Mental Health Mondays. If you or anyone you know has a story to tell, whether that is mental health related or even just an anecdote for my other episode in the week, Sweet and Sour Nuggiez, please get in touch with us via email or via our social links. You can find us on both Twitter and Instagram at @SSNuggiezPod, that is SSNUGGIEZ pod, or you can email us at nuggiezpod@gmail.com. Once again, this has been your host Ebony, and thank you for listening.